Hello everybody, it's Wendy, and today we are going to do just a short little video making a simple loop and a wrapped loop. So thank you a shout out to my friend Missy, who she wanted to know today how to make wrapped loops, and I was going to create a video just for her, but I thought, well, I know I have a lot of beginners on my channel, and I know there are a lot of people who ask about doing the loops, so I'm just going to do a video showing how to do it. Okay, so first of all, you've got to have the right tools. This is a round nose plier, okay? It is very small at this end, larger at this end. You can get these in different sizes. This is the one that I prefer. It is by Beadalon. I like it because it has a very micro tip there. So I can make really small loops or I can make bigger loops. So the higher up on this plier that you come, the bigger your loop is going to be. And, you know, down here you're going to have a teeny tiny loop. So you need a round nose plier. You need a flush cutter. This is a flush cutter. This is made by Quality Hand Tools. And it is really good just for cutting and getting in small areas that you need to cut, okay? You need a couple of chain nose pliers, at least one, probably 2 pairs it's better if you have 2. I have this tweezer nose plier and this bent tweezer nose plier. These are by Xuron. And I like to use these because they get in small places as well. So there are several types of pins that you can use to make loops on. Of course, you can use wire. I'm not going to show you with wire today. I'm just going to show with head pin. This is a regular head pin. As you can see, it's got the little flat head on it right there. This is a ball head pin. It has a little decorative ball, and you can get these ball head pins in all kinds of let me pull out another one here. I'll show you. Whoa, I'm knocking everything over. You can get these ball head pins in all kinds of different, so like this one here has this little thing on the end. I mean, there's like different things that you can get with your head pins on the end. This one has a little basket weave. So this is just a plain ball head pin that I'm using today. They're usually thinner than a regular head pin. This one, for some reason, is not. It's a thicker ball head pin. And you know, I really probably should pull out a thinner one to demonstrate this with, because here's an example of a thinner one. Let's put that one away. Normally they're not that thick, but that one was. So this is a thinner ball head pin. These are very easy to make wrapped loops from. You don't ever want to do a non-wrapped loop with these thin ball head pins because they'll come right undone. Then this is a shorter head pin. I'm going to show you how just to make a regular loop with it, not a wrapped loop. And this is an eye pin. So this is for hanging things. So if you wanted to put a bead on here, make a loop on the top, and then hang something from the bottom, a charm or another bead or whatever, you could do that. Okay, so those are the types of pins. If you're going to do a wrapped loop, you want your pin to be fairly long. Okay, so this is like a 3-inch head pin, and you can order them from pretty much anywhere. Amazon is where I order a lot of stuff from just because they have a big variety and it's easy. All right, so to make a wrapped loop, we're going to take our bead. We're going to put it right here on our pin. I'm going to come up just a tiny, tiny bit. Let me zoom in here so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, I'm going to come up just a tiny, tiny bit from my bead, about maybe that much, so I have room to wrap, okay? And I'm going to bend this 90 degrees. You want a sharp 90-degree bend in your wire, your pin, okay? I'm going to grab this with my round nose pliers right in the bend, okay? So see, it's right in the bend right there. And I'm going to come up and over my round nose plier. Now, if I wanted this to be a bigger loop, I would obviously put it up here. This is a small loop. And here's what it looks like. It's like a little question mark. Whoops, see that? Okay, my plier is vertical right now. You want to rotate your plier horizontal. So it's holding your loop up at the top right there. Okay? And then we're just going to take our wire and we're going to come underneath. Whoops, I'm off video. It's hard when you're zoomed in this far. You just want to take your wire and bend it underneath here. So now you have this little loop, okay? We're going to take the round nose plier out and grab this with our chain nose plier. You want to grab it really firm right on the loop. And then if it's a thin enough pin and you want, you can use your fingers, or you just take your other plier and wrap. And see, as I go around, 1, 2. You can go around as many times as you want. You can make it a messy wrap. You can make it a neat wrap. And see, that creates a loop. And it is not going to come undone because it's wrapped around there 3 times. Now, another thing you can do with this, if you want to make it decorative, is grab this back with your, and you can spiral these loops kind of down onto your bead. Let me undo this a little bit so I have enough room. I've twisted it up. But you can spiral the loop right down onto your bead and almost make it look like a bead cap. You just have to be holding firmly, that's all. Okay, so see how we're coming down onto the bead here? And I kind of messed my wire up, so obviously it would look better if I hadn't done that. And it gets a little hard at the end, but just grab it really tightly. And see, you can make it spiral down onto the top of your bead and almost look like a little bead cap there. Okay, so then you're going to take your plier. You're going to trim it. And you want to make sure after you trim it that you don't have any little snaggy. See, I've got a little snaggy edge right there that could catch on something. So you want to tuck those in. Okay, and just tuck it around. And there is a little wrapped loop with a decorative kind of bead cap look on it. Now, if you don't want to do this down onto the bead, you just cut it. You wrap around a couple times and cut it. So that's a wrapped loop, okay? I'm going to do a wrapped loop with a ball head pin just so you can see how the ball looks on the bottom, and it'll be another, I'll show you again how to make a wrapped loop. So you take it, you come up a little from your bead. Now these are very thin. As you know, probably the gauges of wire, the thinner the gauge of wire, the higher the number. So this is probably a 21 gauge. 20 gauge would be thicker. 18 gauge would be even thicker. So you want to go thin with your wrapped loops, you know, thin with the head pin that you're putting your wrap loop on, just so it's easier to wrap. We're going to come up and over, just like that. We've got the little question mark looking thing, and our plier is still vertical at this point. So we want to take our plier, switch it to horizontal, and we're going to bring this right under. Okay, so there's our little loop. And we're going to grab, and these ball head pins are so thin you can really just do it with your fingers if you want to. And I'm just wrapping around. And then I will trim it right here. You can straighten up your loop if it got a little crooked, tuck your little end in there, and there's your little wrapped loop. Okay, so that's a ball head pin and a regular head pin right there. Now, if you wanted to do a regular loop, not a wrapped loop, here's what you do. You take your bead, you put it on here on your head pin. We're not going to come up far from the bead for this one. We're coming right above the bead and bending 90 degrees, okay? And you want a sharp 90-degree bend. That's part of the problem people have when they do loops, that their loops don't look good. You need a really sharp 90-degree bend, just like that. Okay, I usually cut this wire. I don't like my loops really big, so I cut this wire right about my finger's width or less. The bigger, obviously, you know, if you want a big, huge loop, you're going to come out here. If you want a smaller loop, you're going to come in here. Trim that off. Here's what I've got. Okay. Then you're going to take your round nose plier, and again, depending on where you want the loop to be, do you want a big loop? You're going to do it up here, but you'd have to have more wire. A smaller loop or medium loop. We're just going to do a little bit of a medium loop here, okay? I'm just going to grab the very end of the wire. You don't want any wire sticking out. You want to grab it on the very end, and I'm just going to roll it back. Take my plier, roll. And there is our little loop. Now this loop opens and closes, and when you open and close these loops, you always want to do it front to back like this. You don't want to pull out like this. So to open this and put something on it, I'm going to pull forward. Okay, that opens that little loop up, and then when I put the loop back, I take it and I do the same thing. I just go back with it like that. Okay, you do not want to do this. because that bends this out of shape and makes it very hard really to get it closed back. I mean, you can, but now look at it, it's kind of lopsided, and it also weakens the wire, okay? So always open and close your loops front to back, and then close it back like that, okay? So an eye pin, obviously, if you wanted to make a loop with an eye pin, we would put our bead on. You've got your little eye here. If I'm going to do a wrapped loop on an eye pin, I always go ahead and hang my dangle on first. So say I'm going to put this dangle on here. And the reason for that, and as you notice, I opened that forward. I didn't pull it out like this. Okay, I'm going to bend it back. And you can feel it click against the metal. Okay, and then you know your loop is closed really good. There's our little dangle. Now, if I was going to do a wrapped loop, I would hang my dangle on first, because when you wrap this wire down toward the bead, it's going to make this very tight, and you don't want to have to try to open that when it's real tight. If you're just going to do a regular loop, it's a little easier to open and you can hang your dangle on after. But let's do one more wrapped loop just so we get the hang of it. So you come up a little bit from the bead, about this far maybe, bend a sharp 90-degree angle, take your plier, come up and over, so you've got your question mark. Okay, your plier's vertical, rotate your plier horizontal, and come right under. There's your little loop. Then you're going to grab with your chain nose plier very tightly. You have to hold this really tight and wrap. Okay. And you always wrap down toward the bead. And there's our little wrapped loop. And it's very sturdy. Now, one way, because Missy was saying she wanted it to look prettier, one way you can make this look prettier is to put a little bead cap on your bead before you do your wire. Let me see if I have a bead cap in here. If I do, in my little mass of stuff, here's one. All right, so let's do a bead cap on a bead, just so you can see what it looks like. That's not going to be a very good example. Hold on. That's a weird bead, and that bead cap is flat. Let me get a different bead cap out of here. Here are my bead caps. Okay, so here's a bead cap. And here's a bead. This will work. All right, let me get another pin out. All right, so to make your bead look a little prettier, you can do a bead cap. You can do one on the top, on the bottom alone, on the top alone, or you can do one on the top and the bottom. So let's say I need one with a smaller hole if I'm going to do this. Maybe that'll work. So say I want to do one on the top and the bottom of this bead. So I'd take the bead cap, put it on there. I want to make sure it's not going to come out of that. It might. Put the bead cap right on the pin. Put my bead on. Put my next bead cap on. Okay. So those are bead caps. They just add a little decorative element to the bead. They make them in all different shapes, sizes, colors, finishes. I mean, you know, these are all bead caps. Well, that's a toggle. But yeah, all these filigree ones. Here's a metal one, a metal silver one. So see, looks like a little hat. You would put one on the bottom and one on the top if you wanted, or you could do just the top or just the bottom. Here's a little square-ish one. So they make them in all different shapes, sizes, finishes, and colors. And you would make your wrapped loop exactly the same with the bead caps on, or your regular loop if you didn't want to do a wrapped loop. So hopefully this helps you, Missy, to be able to make some wrapped loops. It does take some practice, but you'll get the hang of it. It's not really all that hard. It's just, you know, if you haven't done them before, it just takes some practice. But there they are, little wrapped loops, and they're secure. Nothing's going to come out of that. Here is your other style loop. This can open up and things can come out of it, but if you get it closed up really good, then you don't usually have to worry too much about that. But, you know, if you want to be really secure with it and make sure that nothing happens, then you've got your little wrapped loops here, and that they're very secure. Okay, so I hope this helps. If you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.